So welcome to the Journey into the Heart Summit. I want to welcome a very, very dear and exciting guest that is here with us today, Lisa Hammett. Lisa Hammett is an accomplished motivational TEDx speaker, an international best-selling author. She's also a mental fitness coach. Yes, that is amazing. She's done so much work. And if you just Google her, you will just be blown away at what she's doing in this world. And I'm really honored and excited to get to, interview you and share, with this audience of entrepreneurs, people that are, looking at stepping into their purpose, get to share your wisdom, your path and journey into legacy leadership. And yeah, I just want to welcome you. First of all, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for doing this and showing up. And I would love you to tell a little bit about yourself and what you're doing here on this planet.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kia. I'm so delighted to be here. And I know when we chatted the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, a long lost friend. I don't know. We just totally connected and it was exciting. So I'm thrilled to be here. So kind of my backstory is I reached burnout after a 26-year career in the corporate retail sector. And I share that because it's really what propelled me into what I'm doing today and how I really overhauled my life. In my case, anybody watching this has experienced burnout or is on a fast train towards burnout. I equate it to slamming into a wall, a cement wall, and I was just done. I had no more mental bandwidth, to continue in that space. And of course, there were all kinds of other symptoms too that developed that I kept, brushing under the table saying, oh, those, little tension headaches, they'll go away. Well, they turned into chronic migraines and then stomach issues. And then my marriage, was having a rough time. And it got so bad that one day I woke up and the world just looked gray. There was no color. And it totally freaked me out, to be perfectly honest. So in a moment of desperation, I left a 26-year career at a high salary without an exit strategy of how to replace my income. And I share that because it resulted in bankruptcy. Because you can't leave a high salary and not have a plan of how you're going to replace your income. You just can't do that. But the problem is when you allow yourself, and I'm saying you in generalities, to get into such a difficult place, then in a moment of desperation, that's what happens. And, I've talked to people who have ended marriages or have, made this huge investment in something without a lot of forethought of, okay, well, I'm taking all the money out of my retirement. This sounds really cool. Well, what if it doesn't work? And then you don't have a retirement. So, you have to be intentional. And that's why I am so passionate about helping people not get to that point. And it can save so much pain and anguish because burnout is preventable.
Yeah. Lisa, it's such a real thing. And we talked about a little bit about my experience because I did go through that. My burnout was exactly that. I spent my early 20s building a career in, the hospitality industry and being CEO and manager on duty, like the responsibilities, you think you have so much energy. And the same thing, I wish I had known you back then or gotten to meet you because it was the exact same thing. I got to that breaking point where I walked away from everything. And, I don't share this story, but I ended up at Porta Subs and I ended up loving it. I just love not having the responsibility. But I always wonder, after meeting you and seeing the work that you do, what could I have done to find that support and that coaching to help me, transition, tell me a little bit about your journey into entrepreneurialism, because I know that pieces of me are so excited when I see you on TED Talks and your books are going and you're speaking. I'm like, yes, I want to do that. I want to do that. I have this big mission. But that transition into it is so much learning. It's a big learning curve. And this is why, what you do is so important, because had I had that transition, I had someone to walk me through that, then it wouldn't have been selling everything and putting all my money into it and trying to figure it out as I go. And there are inevitable like things that you have to, that are going to be the hiccup. Tell me a little bit about your experience.
Yes. So when I left the corporate sector, I started my wellness journey because I was 65 pounds overweight. I had never weighed that much in my life. My joints hurt. I was 40 years old and I felt like I was 90. Well, what I thought 90 would be like, it's like every joint hurt. I'm like, this is terrible. This is ridiculous. Why do you want to do this? So I started my wellness journey and I lost the weight, and then I became a health coach, and I did that for over 11 years. And then, throughout that time, lots of self-development. I read a ton of books. I tried to do as many trainings as I could just get into. And I really sought out people who I wanted to be like, and really surrounded myself with those positive people that I aspired to be. And then, that just moved me then into the pandemic. And I had a stint in the direct selling industry, and the pandemic basically shut that down. And I had been doing coaching alongside of that. And I'm like, my husband had said, why don't you just open your own business? Because I was working for a big global company. And I'm like, you're right. I just need to do that. So I went and I got, certification for life coaching, because that was a big piece of it. Because, health and well-being, bottom line, reaching for food or allowing, your body to just deteriorate is really a sign of a bigger problem. And I wanted to really get to that root cause with the people that I coached. So I went through the life coaching program. And then last year is when I started my positive intelligence mental fitness journey. And I actually just got my certificate yesterday. I actually became certified over the summer, but I just got my certificate. So it's pretty exciting. And that's really the foundation of my practice. And that's all, based on how negative thought patterns impact our behavior, which then impact the behavior of others and how we show up in the world. And it transformed my life, because it taught me those tools that I wish I had had, and that you wish that you had had when you were burnt out, so that you could have managed that stress and not allowed yourself to get to that point. And I share those with, my clients, and they're just like, wow, I wish I had had this in high school, because it sure would have helped, So that's I feel like my life has really come full circle. And it was a journey. I mean, it was a long journey, but I think the key is, you just get out there, just try to absorb as much information as you can, and surround yourself with those people that you really aspire to be like. They always say you should always be around people that are better than you, because that's going to push you, and they'll encourage and motivate you. So I think that's true.
That you're definitely hitting the nail on the head there. I have found just a significant shift in my own journey just by like meeting you, and just meeting, incredible leaders that I, get to learn from. I mean, what you spoke about just now about like the mindset of everything is so true. My own personal experience, like even after having been in service and doing the work for years now, I still find that every time I go to that next level, or I try to do something new that's scary, or that I'm learning, I'm noticing, I still have like this, the easiest way to say it is like the issues come back. It's not that they're not healed, but it's like they revisit, like, the imposter syndrome, the unworthiness, the who am I to be able to do this? No one's going to listen to me. Just these things. And it's just like, I remember like working with my coach, I was just like crying. I was like, I already have done self-worth issues for like 10 years. Why? And, it's an evolutionary thing that I'm finding, that the mind is so strong. The mind is so powerful. And, the ego, you think that it's cleaning everything up, but it's actually the ego is the one doing it. So it's, it's always that.
So true.
Can you share maybe with the audience any specific tools that you would say to implement like right away? Like if you were to look back at the version of you that was 10 years ago and say, you need to do this first and let go of those things. What would you say to her?
I would say first that you have to make self-care a priority. And people watching this are probably rolling their eyes because they're like, oh, yeah, whatever. I don't have time for that. So the sad thing about that is when we don't make time for that, then that's what leads us to chronic stress, poor health, burnout. And when things get stressful and tough, that's the first thing that we should prioritize. But we do it backwards. And then we end up trying to heal ourselves, and it's a mess. So, and self-care means establishing healthy boundaries. It's not just what you eat and how you move your body, but healthy boundaries, learning how to say no, managing your time, not allowing your calendar to be accessible to everybody. And then you feel like you have no time for yourself, and then, yes, it's finding things in your life that bring you joy. And it's those simple things, like having a really awesome cup of coffee or tea, whatever you prefer, but just savoring it. I mean, when is the last time? And I share this with people in speaking engagements. I'm like, when was the last time you really savored a cup of tea or coffee? And, you might get one or two people that raise their hand, but most of them are just like, no, I just guzzle it because I need the caffeine hit. And I'm like, that's so sad. And I always share that, my coffee in the morning is kind of a meditative experience because I have this really beautiful pottery mug that has a big sunflower on it. And I love sunflowers, and it's just really pretty. And I love cinnamon coffee. I love the smell of it. I like the taste of it. And I sit there, I'm holding that mug and I'm smelling it and just, drinking it. And everybody like laughs when I describe it because I just sound, like I have a love affair with my coffee. But I do, and it's little things like that can bring pleasure and joy into your life, and we often think, well, when I reach that, huge milestone in my career, or if I have a house, or if I have a child, or, whatever it is, or I get that new car, or I go on that dream vacation, then my life is great. The thing is, those things are so few and far between in the whole scheme of things that if we're waiting for those bigger things to happen, we're just going to be disappointed all the time. So I would say I kind of shared a lot of different things, but I think a lot of that is important. And then, the mental fitness piece of it, really learning how to manage stress in the moment, huge. And I can share in a little bit, actually, a technique that people can use to help them.
Wow. That's, I love how just aligned, even everything you're saying is just to my journey. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've been learning as I'm going through this process is, I've started saying this, like, knowledge without action is just information. It's just because, like me, even in the work that I do, just because I know it, if I'm not taking action on it, it doesn't mean anything. And to be like a good coach or an entrepreneur, I'm seeing the value, the worth, and the depth of how, like, I have to live it is how you actually get the authority to teach it. Just because you're regurgitating information doesn't mean that you're a good coach. You can know all the things, but like the savoring coffee too, like that. I love that you're talking about. I'm a coffee connoisseur too. I love,
yay.
Yes, and being in the holistic industry, like, it's been something I felt like I've even had to hide at times because, oh, you can't drink coffee, I love it. But, the same thing, I went through a process of like, okay, if I'm going to love this thing, I'm going to love it big. Yes. How can I love it big and really keep that connection with it? And there's like, I'll just be authentic. Like, there's Starbucks plenty of times, or it's a quick drive through, but there is a difference when I'm connected to it. And I'm finding that same like invitation for my family. Like, I'm fighting and working and putting all this effort into building this business, but to have that space and time to connect with my family. But the whole disconnect there, and what that great thief is, that subconscious shadow, is like, I'm not connecting with my family, the one thing that I want to do, or my friends or my social life and health. What you said, I literally sat down today and was making a commitment with my buddy. We have a partnership to where we hold each other accountable on stuff. And I was like, man, I've been noticing that I've been letting my health slide. And
Mm.
what you're saying is just like, I'm taking it as your 10-year younger version of you. And I want to apply these things because,
Mhm.
yeah, it's so important. I just am so grateful to hear this because it's stuff I think about. And that now the invitation for me and for anybody watching is, can you take action? And how can you take action on this rather than just watch this interview? Like
Yeah.
literally listen to Lisa and hear her experience from someone who's done it, and this is what, 10 years of wisdom, in the field, being on the stages, doing all the amazing things, so thank you.
Thank you.
I would definitely love to hear your technique. I'm like,
Aw.
get my notes right now.
Oh, but on the stress, I can do that. I can share that.
Please,
Yeah.
please.
So this is a mental fitness technique, and I'll give a couple different scenarios. So, for since this is entrepreneurs, stress, daily stress, building a business can get really overwhelming. So if you're starting to feel that negative energy just start to build, and then your body kind of goes into that flight or fight response where you have an escalated heart rate, and you notice that your breathing is coming quicker, and you might be not realizing this, but your shoulders are up around your ears, and you feel tension in your stomach and your back. So when you start to feel that, then kind of do a time out and engage your senses. And what I mean by that is, there's several senses that apply very well to this, like something you can see. So imagine that, you're sitting at a desk and you're trying to get things done, pause and look at something in front of you in your space that you've probably seen 1,000 times, but you've never really looked at it, and stare at it as if you've never seen it before, and notice like tiny details, shapes, colors, textures, and just really zero in on that. So that's one way. Another is focusing on something that you can hear. Now, obviously, I'm talking, so the listeners are hearing my voice. But if you're in an environment and you're hearing something, take a minute. Maybe it's a passing car. Maybe it's a clock. I have a fan going in here. Whatever it is that you hear, just focus on that, and then shift your focus to your breath. And what does the sound of your breath sound like? And then the next thing is touch. And I like to just rub two fingertips together, like your index and your thumb, and just rub them together. But pay attention to how it feels. Feel the fingertip ridges of your fingers. Are they dry? Are they smooth? What's the temperature of your fingertips? Now, this little technique helped me through a microphone incident with my TEDx. And I have to share this quickly because just to say how this worked. So, for those of you who, I'm sure a lot of people know what a TED Talk is, but the amount of preparation, and you're expected to memorize it. So it's a pretty big deal. And I don't typically memorize, my topics. I know my topics really well. I work from a slide deck, but I like things to be very interactive. So that was a little intimidating. So before I went on stage, I was doing these breathing exercises, and then I was doing this, and I just very subtly, in my pocket, and I was feeling good. I was like in a right headspace, and I felt, like some kind of excited energy, but I felt like I was under control. So they put us in the green room, they mic us up, tested the mic, everything's great. And then I hear my intro and I go out on stage and I start, and not 10 seconds into it, the MC comes running over and tells me to stop. And she said, "Your microphone's not on." And I'm like, "What?" They tested it. Well, I guess the person who tested it inadvertently turned it back off, not, paying attention. So she is going up the back. So I was wearing a shirt, blouse and a jacket. So they had run the wire like down my shirt. So her hand is like up the back of my shirt. I'm looking at the audience.
Oh my God.
And they're all like, have this look of shock, because a TED Talk, how does that happen? So I'm just like, I'm just going to roll with it. I'm just not going to let this bother me. So I just kind of like did a curtsy, and I rolled my eyes and shrugged my shoulders. Everybody kind of chuckled. And then she finished and she said, "Okay," she whispered in my ear, "just start over." And honestly, had I not been doing this literally for an hour before I went on stage and was in a really good headspace, I would have probably completely derailed. And it actually turned out so great because my TED talk actually talked about what I'm sharing now. And I actually walked the audience through, a little mental fitness exercise. So at the end, in my closing remarks, I said, this can help you when the unexpected happens, like a microphone incident. And then I left and it worked out great. So I believe in divine intervention. And I think that the universe was saying this is needed to happen. And it was just funny. But again, I share all that to say that something as little as this that you don't even think about really can make a huge difference. Because what it does is what you had mentioned before was when you say, gosh, sometimes just all these old feelings and emotions, they come back and they don't go away, really. You're right. They never will go away. It doesn't matter how masterful you are at certain techniques. They're not just going to disappear forever. They're going to come back at unexpected times. But the thing is you're going to be able to command them to stop. You're going to recognize them. And then you're with self-command exercises like what I shared, you can get them to stop. And then you can go into a headspace of where, okay, I have clear-headed focus. I'm calm. I'm peaceful. The communication is clear. So anyways.
Wow, Lisa, that I would have been devastated on stage right now. Like that's what's really interesting about what you just said is in my line of work, that's actually one of the techniques that I have clients do when they're having post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. So I've never actually used it for like that calming of my own senses in that way, but I love that because the way that I teach is to guide them to find their fingerprint right on there.
Yes.
And that can pull someone out of a trauma response into the present moment. And just like, wow, I love how gosh, it's just so incredible to get present with these little tools. And it's interesting because like the sensing, the hearing, I was doing that as you were saying and looking at my pen, and it's just like, it goes back to what I was talking about, just like knowing and doing it are two different things, like I know that I've been experiencing, sometimes I'll learn information and I will take, I will go for it. I'll be like all in it for a little bit. And then I'll start to, just kind of get, it's like sidetracked from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to, looks like we have about 10 minutes left on here. Would you share with us a personal journey to like, what was the time where as an entrepreneur, you were experiencing that edge, that fear of like, I don't think I can do this. And what was it that helped you pull through?
So that's a great question. And when you mentioned imposter syndrome earlier, I still suffer with that. Not every day. And I can get a pretty good handle on it now when I start to recognize when it comes up. But I'll talk to coaches who have been coaching for years and are very high level coaches. And they all experience imposter syndrome at some point. And, when I was going through my life coaching program, I really uncovered that I had this fear of success. And that sounds so weird. It's like, why would you be fearful of success? But, it's like, okay, so if I do achieve this ultimate goal, that I want, can I handle it? How will the relationship with my spouse change? The relationship with others? What's going to happen? How will my life change? And it was scary, and it was really understanding where that came from. We went way back, and this isn't always the case. They say, oh, you have a fear of something. It stems from a childhood trauma. In some cases it does, but not every single fear comes from that, but in this case, my mother was bipolar. And so I was used to growing up with a parent who was either happy as can be, like larger than life, loving, wonderful, or she would shut me out and wouldn't talk to me for like a week. So I developed like these people pleasing tendencies because I always wanted to keep mother happy because, when she's happy, hopefully she wouldn't react, and get triggered and things like that. And a lot of my fears manifested from that because I was so fearful that, oh, I wouldn't get good enough grades or I wouldn't be good at this. And what was really sad about that is I was never pressured by my parents that you have to get straight A's. I mean, they were good about, saying we just want you to work hard and do your best. But if you've ever been around somebody who has mental illness, it's, they can't control it. And she was, my parents were older. I'm adopted. They adopted me later in life. They grew up in the Great Depression. Apparently, there was a pattern of mental illness in her family that went way back, for years. So I'm finding all this, and it was just really interesting to learn that and how it really manifested in like fears of success and then fears of failure too. But yeah.
Wow, that's very, thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful. I mean, my mom too. My mom just recently passed and also suffered with mental illness. And so I would definitely say that that's, something I'm experiencing is that fear of success. And it's freshly new being uncovered. I thought it was fear of failure for a long time, but I'm noticing like, I think I've been comfortable because I can be in survivor's mode. I can figure it out. I can find that passion, that ambition. But then when it comes to having that significant change, I've backed off before. I've gone, and so you're speaking so much to my journey, and probably so many other entrepreneurs, whether, we talk about this enough, I have no idea. I don't think that we could talk about it enough. I know I have to hear something several times before I really get it, like before I really soak it in to where I can take action on it. And it's just been an interesting journey. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And, just thank you for doing the work and breaking those molds and those bonds, especially with, family, and people around us that do suffer in that way, because it affects us in great ways. So I just want to, I'm just so enamored by you, Lisa.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
I just love it. Yeah, you have so much wealth and, like experientially, and just everything you say is just so beautiful. It's so true and poignant and right on target, and the work that you're doing is helping so many people. So I just want to thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I heard that you might have a gift that you wanted to offer the audience today.
Yes. So it's a free workbook and it helps you create a laser focused vision for your future. And it's funny, I was having coffee with somebody today and she's very successful, small business owner, but her son was away at college and her whole life, she's a single mom and her whole life revolved around her son. And now she's starting to feel kind of lost because he's away at college and doesn't need her, as much anymore. So I'm like, so what do you want? And she's like, well, I've never really thought about that. I'm like, what do you imagine your life to be? So sometimes we get in that place because we're so focused on our jobs or a family member or, whatever, that we lose sight of that. So this workbook will help you create that laser focused vision for your future. It'll help you tie it into your core values, what you're passionate about, what your strengths are, align it with your why, why you do what you do, and then also help you create those goals that stick, basically. So this workbook actually pairs with my best-selling book, which I released last year, From Burnout to Best Life, which integrates my journey of moving past happy, a burnout situation to a happy, healthy life. And at the end of each chapter, there are reflection questions that help identify pain points, that the reader might need help addressing. So the workbook is a good pairing with that.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
You're
That's
welcome.
incredible. I can't wait to dig into that. Yeah. I just want to, again, welcome you and thank you so much for your time here, Lisa. And just to the audience, just make sure that you check out her website. Her links are on the promo page and you can check her out. Go to her website, make sure you sign up and get her on her emailing list and get her book. And don't forget to download that free workbook, because this is where it's at. When you get clear on these things, then everything else starts to open up. And that's been my experience. And so, I just want to thank you again, and just
thank you.
Yeah, I hope to get to interview you in the future when I'm a little bit further along.
Oh, you're doing amazing work. Don't sell yourself short. You're doing amazing work. So
thank you so much. Thank you to the audience as well.
Thank you.